Now let's expand to audio. Suppose we want text, images, and audio all in the same embedding space. Architecturally, we can introduce a third encoder for audio. This encoder might take a MEL spectrogram as input and output a vector in the same dimensional space as the text and image encoders. During training, we use paired data, audio-text pairs, audio-image pairs, or triplets containing all three modalities. The loss function generalizes naturally. We can apply contrastive losses between each pair of modalities, text-image, text-audio, image-audio. For example, for a given audio clip of barking, the text a dog barking should be close, and an image of a dog should also be close. If the dataset includes synchronized multimodal content, such as videos with audio and captions, we can align all three modalities jointly. As more modalities are added, the embedding space becomes richer and more constrained. Each modality anchors meaning in different ways. Text is symbolic and compositional. Images are spatial and perceptual. Audio is temporal and frequency-based. When aligned properly, the shared embedding space captures cross-modal invariances. The concept of dog must be consistent across visual patterns, acoustic patterns, and textual tokens. Let's dig into how these encoders are structured internally. In modern systems, transformers dominate. For text, the transformer processes token embeddings with self-attention. The final representation is often a pooled token, such as a special classification token, or a mean of token embeddings. For images, a vision transformer splits the image into patches, linearly projects each patch into a token embedding, adds positional encodings, and processes them with self-attention layers similar to text. For audio, the time-frequency representation can be segmented into patches along time and frequency axes and fed into a transformer in a similar way. Notice the architectural convergence. All modalities are increasingly treated as sequences of tokens. Text is naturally sequential tokens. Images become sequences of patch tokens. Audio spectrograms become sequences of time-frequency patches. This unification makes it easier to share architectural principles and even pre-training strategies. However, alignment does not require identical architectures. What matters is that the final output vectors live in the same dimensional space and are trained with objectives that tie them together semantically. There are alternative strategies beyond pure contrastive learning. One approach is to use a joint multimodal transformer that directly processes multiple modalities together. For example, you might concatenate text tokens and image patch tokens into a single sequence and feed them into a single transformer with cross-attention. In this case, the model learns joint representations internally. The embedding extracted from such a model inherently encodes cross-modal interactions. Another approach involves generative objectives. Instead of only aligning representations via similarity, the model can be trained to generate one modality from another. For instance, given an image, generate a caption. Given audio, generate a transcript. The encoder representations that support such generation tasks tend to capture modality invariant semantics. When trained carefully, these representations can also be used as embeddings. Let's consider the role of self-supervised learning. For text, self-supervised learning uses language modeling objectives. For images, masked image modeling or contrastive predictive coding can be used. For audio, masked acoustic modeling is common. In multimodal settings, we often combine self-supervised unimodal objectives with cross-modal alignment objectives. This stabilizes training and ensures that each encoder remains strong within its own modality. A key engineering question is how to balance the losses. If you have text-image and text-audio losses, and perhaps unimodal mask modeling losses, the relative weighting matters. Too much weight on unimodal objectives can weaken alignment. Too much emphasis on alignment can degrade unimodal performance. In practice, careful tuning and large batch sizes are critical. Large batch sizes are particularly important for contrastive learning. In-batch negatives serve as implicit negative samples. The more diverse and numerous the negatives, the sharper the embedding space becomes. This is one reason why large-scale training on massive distributed systems has been so influential in multimodal models. Let's talk about dimensionality. Embedding vectors are typically high-dimensional, often hundreds or thousands of dimensions. High dimensionality allows the model to encode many independent semantic factors. However, dimensionality alone does not guarantee quality. The training objective shapes how that space is structured. Regularization techniques, normalization layers, and temperature scaling in the contrastive loss all influence the geometry. Temperature scaling in particular controls how sharply similarities are distributed. A low temperature sharpens the distribution, encouraging tighter clusters and larger margins between correct and incorrect pairs. This can improve retrieval performance but may also make optimization more unstable. Now consider evaluation. Multimodal embeddings are often evaluated on retrieval tasks. Given a text query, retrieve the most relevant images. Given an image, retrieve the most relevant captions. Metrics like recall at K measure how often the correct match appears in the top K results. Zero-shot classification is another benchmark, especially in image recognition tasks. But evaluation can go deeper. We can probe embeddings for bias. Because multimodal models are trained on large-scale web data, they can encode societal biases present in that data. If certain professions co-occur more frequently with certain genders in the training data, the embedding space may reflect those associations. This has implications for fairness and downstream applications. From a systems perspective, multimodal embeddings enable a unified interface for heterogeneous data. A search engine can index text, images, and audio in the same vector database. A user can type a query, upload an image, or provide an audio clip, and the system retrieves relevant content regardless of modality. The embedding acts as a universal semantic currency. Let's discuss scaling laws briefly. As with unimodal models, multimodal embedding quality tends to improve predictably with scale, more parameters, more data, more compute. However, multimodal data is more expensive to curate. Paired datasets are harder to obtain than raw text. Weakly supervised data from the web, such as alt text associated with images, has been a major driver of progress. There is also the question of modality imbalance. Text data is far more abundant than high-quality audio text or image text pairs. If one modality dominates, it can shape the embedding space disproportionately. Techniques such as curriculum learning or sampling strategies can mitigate this imbalance. Now consider compositionality. One of the strengths of text embeddings is compositional generalization. The meaning of red car can be inferred from red and car. In multimodal embeddings, we want similar compositional behavior across modalities. If the model has seen red objects and cars separately, can it generalize to red cars visually? Contrastive training with diverse captions encourages this, but it is not guaranteed. The richness and diversity of paired data are critical. Let's move to cross-modal reasoning. Basic alignment captures coarse semantic similarity. But deeper reasoning requires more than proximity. For example, aligning an image of a complex scene with a detailed paragraph requires understanding relationships, spatial arrangements, and possibly temporal context. Advanced multimodal systems incorporate cross-attention layers that allow one modality to attend directly to another during encoding, enriching the embeddings with relational information. There is also an emerging trend toward unified foundation models that treat all modalities as tokens in a single transformer. In such systems, embeddings are not merely outputs of separate encoders but arise from a shared backbone trained across modalities. This can lead to stronger cross-modal transfer, as representations are learned in a deeply integrated way. Finally, let's reflect on what multimodal embeddings represent conceptually. They are an attempt to approximate a shared latent semantic space underlying different sensory and symbolic forms. Humans perceive the world visually and auditorily and describe it linguistically. We seem to have some internal representation where these modalities converge. Multimodal embeddings are a computational analog of that convergence. However, they are still limited by their training data and objectives. They capture statistical regularities, not grounded understanding in a physical sense. They can align a barking sound with the word dog, but they do not experience a dog. This distinction matters when interpreting their capabilities. To summarize the conceptual flow without labeling it as such, we start with unimodal encoders that map inputs into vector spaces. We train these encoders jointly with contrastive or generative objectives so that semantically corresponding inputs from different modalities are close in a shared space. We rely on large-scale paired data, high-capacity architectures like transformers, and carefully balanced losses. The resulting embedding space enables cross-modal retrieval, zero-shot learning, and unified search across text, image, and audio. As you think about multimodal embeddings in your own systems, focus on three axes: the architecture of each encoder, the alignment objective, and the data distribution. The embedding space you get is the product of all three. Geometry is destiny here. The structure of that high-dimensional space determines what your system cannot generalize to. If you internalize one idea from this discussion, let it be this: multimodal embeddings are not just vectors, they are a learned semantic topology shared across sensory and symbolic domains. Designing them is about shaping that topology through data, architecture, and optimization so that meaning becomes geometry.
If you find this video exciting, please like, subscribe, and turn on notifications. See you in the next AI for Beginners educational video.